Hi, everyone. So recently, I reached out to three of my customer experience professional colleagues and friends and asked them to provide quotes for an article about the lessons that we learned in customer experience from the year of 2020. One of those people was Nancy Porte, Vice President of Global Customer Experience at Verint. Here's what she had to say.
For me, 2020 was a year of resilience for our CX program. While CX strategy typically remains unchanged, tactics must evolve to keep the program relevant to customer expectations and organizational goals. This year's unpredictable and unrelenting changes challenged us in every area of the program, but particularly in customer feedback, quantity and quality, priority of change initiatives, and of course, keeping up with changing customer expectations. We learned the importance of a strong CX strategy.
Hi, everybody. I'm here with my friend Nancy Porte from Verint. Nancy was one of my friends that I called on to give us a quote for the blog, and we're going to talk about that today. So, Nancy, before we get started, will you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Jeannie, and thanks for having me here today. I am, as Jeannie said, I'm Nancy Porte. I lead the customer experience program at Verint. And at Verint, that really entails not only getting feedback from our customers, but doing the analysis and then acting on that. So pretty busy as it's a global program too.
Yep. And you've been doing that a long time. And I know that it's something that you've really grown into a really robust program. I've watched some of that maturity happen. So congratulations on all of that, first of all. But
Thank you, Jeannie.
yeah, of course. And, one of the things that you mentioned in your quote about what we learned this year from 2020, which was a year like no other, I think we can agree. You talked about resilience. And one of the things that I really noticed in the quote was that you talked about how strategy might not change, but tactics have to change, including how and when and what we collect as far as customer feedback. So, can you talk a little bit about that lesson and how you learned that this year?
Oh, I'd love to. So I think I cheated a little bit because I think part of being in CX is being resilient. You just, in order to meet each challenge and really reach the next level of maturity, resilience has got to be part of not only the program but the CX practitioner. And but I still wanted to call it out because my sense was I had all this confidence around resilience. I thought, I've been doing this for a long time, and if nothing else, I have resilience. But 2020 was a year that challenged even the extent to which we already thought we had it in the program, and had it just in our strategy and tactics. And so when I said that the strategy doesn't change, our strategy is the same. We really work hard to have customers who are loyal, who have great experiences at each step of their journey. And so the strategy for that, it didn't change. But what really changed was the tactics, because their expectations changed in 2020. They had a lot of not only professional challenges, but personal challenges, which they expected us to change how we were serving them, how we were helping them be successful, because a lot of their definitions of success changed. So
Yeah. I just want to add one thing, because I think that's so important, the definition of success. What do we actually know about, and how can we actually support what these customers are trying to do? Because I think sometimes it's easy to fall into that pattern of, well, we survey at this time and we get this feedback and then we move on. And I really appreciated how you looked at that differently through the customer lens.
absolutely. And I think we were thinking the needs have changed, so we'll use our traditional feedback methods to find out how those needs have changed. And where we got a little stuck was that we didn't expect customers to be so busy that they weren't responding to our traditional feedback. And that's where I really looked at resilience for this year. And that's, going forward, we'll have some increased resilience there too, is there had to be other ways of understanding what their changing expectations were.
Yeah, I think resilience could be the word of the year for 2020 because it's been very, very much something that builds character, as my dad used to say, right?
Oh, then we have tons of character.
Well, I loved your quote. I also really appreciated what the other, our other friends that I reached out to about this, what they had to offer, because Tabitha actually talked about and they were kind of yin and yang, these two ideas, because Tabitha talked about how important it is to build a coalition of partners within an organization in order to deliver great customer experiences. And I think that's something that is often overlooked. This is never a one-man band, right? Like it takes teamwork to make the dream work, as they say. So I'm just curious, what is your response to the idea of building a coalition? And is that something that you've experienced this year as well?
Oh, when I read Tabitha's quote, I thought, oh, I wish I'd said that. It is, it is so, so true. That coalition that supports the program and all of the efforts that you're undertaking is so important and more important than in any other job I've ever had. And we talk about executive support, and then we talk about peer support and even grassroots support for the program. All of that is important. But it's not a one and done. And that's, I think, what I loved about Tabitha's quote is that it is something that you are constantly building. Executives change, organizational priorities change. And so that coalition is never, done. You're always building. So that's a really important piece.
Yeah. And I love how you said it's not one and done, because I think one of the things that I see a lot with CX leadership is there's a lot of momentum in the beginning, and there's a lot of momentum about like whatever that first thing is. So we're going to do a customer journey map, or we're going to launch an NPS program. And then once it gets going, it's not as exciting. It's not as interesting to people, because some of the feedback comes in and it's kind of the same for a while before you make changes, or you start stabilizing actually, and you start seeing like we don't have as much to fix. And so all of those things happen, and leaders kind of drift away if you are not constantly building those relationships, creating that coalition, communicating about the success of the program as well as the needs from other leaders throughout the organization. So I think it's a really critical point that a lot of people could learn from as well. And then our friend Heather actually suggested something. And when I said it's yin and yang, she talked about collaborating with customers. And I think that's something that, again, ironically, we sometimes overlook, right? But how are you, or how have you collaborated with customers in the past? And what's the importance of that to you?
The collaboration with customers was actually what helped us be more resilient. So I'll connect those two as well, because when our traditional feedback methods weren't as robust as we wanted on the direct feedback side, and I always look at my feedback as in three categories. I've got direct, indirect, and then some inferred data too. And when you put it all together, you get this wonderful little picture. But when you're missing a piece, your picture gets really, really fuzzy. And we were missing that piece on the direct feedback. And it was because we had the collaboration, the relationships with customers, that we were able to go to certain groups of customers. We were able to go one-on-one on customers and get a lot of that direct feedback. I don't know how you improved customer feedback without that collaboration with customers, not only on getting the feedback, but also, hey, here's what we're thinking of doing. Does this work? Can you help me? Can you help me design what the optimal journey is here? Or can you look at what we've designed and give us some reaction to it? So I would feel like I was working with, one or maybe two hands behind my back without that collaboration.
It is really important. And it's something that if you're designing a program, sometimes we get to the end of the design and people look around and think, well, when do we talk to customers? And you really have to make sure that it's a constant part of your customer experience strategy and everything else. So I think it's a great point. So
Mhm.
now that we are getting to the end of 2020, we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Are we?
I don't know. I'm going to say that. Let's just go with it.
Okay, we're going to go with that.
We talked about CX optimism, right? We need
Yeah,
that in our lives.
we're
And
almost there.
so so are there any words of wisdom for 2021? What do you see for our future in the CX crystal ball?
CX has to be stronger and stronger going forward. Sometimes when we're in the day to day of a CX program, we don't see the progress that we've made as a profession and maybe in our own programs. We always see the road ahead of us and see how far there is to go, and don't always see how far we've come. And so we have made great strides, and organizations are understanding that this is the differentiator, that a successful business has to build expertise and muscle in. And so I would say optimism, very important for
Mhm.
2021. We need to, but I would say let's take a few minutes and take stock of how far we really, really have come, and realize we need the energy for going forward and building the resilience, the collaboration, as well as the coalitions for 2021 and beyond.
Perfectly said. Thank you. Thank you so much for being
Thank you.
here and for all you do for the CX community. You're on the board, you're the co-chair of the CXPA, and you do a lot of other things too. So we appreciate all of that. And I am optimistic as always. So thank you for helping me be there. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, Jeannie. It was great.